Hello.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening. How are you? If you don't mind, please mute your mics so my voice will be clear to all of you. So if your mic is on, please mute it.
Is it all right?
Okay, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, could you please mute the mic? Please mute the mic and use the chat pod to reply, please. Okay, so let's start. Now, thank you for being on time for our session today about IELTS. I'm gonna give you a small introduction about myself. I am Isra Osman. I'm an ESL instructor and I'm an IELTS and certified teacher trainer. I'm working currently at Princess Noura University. So today's topics would be, we're gonna know more about the IELTS format, what's the exam formed of, and we're gonna try to analyze each part as much as we can, and see some samples of questions. We're gonna also know how the scoring is and what it means to get a certain score on IELTS. We're gonna also know what to expect on test day after registration and you are on your way to your exam, so what to expect on that day. And at the end, we'll have some time for your questions. Whenever you have a question, please write it down and remember to type it for me at the end of the session so we can discuss all of your questions together. Okay, so just making sure that all of you know how to use the chat pod. I want you to confirm that you can see the screen, you can see the presentation, and you can hear my voice and see my face. Just using the chat pod, raising a hand, maybe just writing a yes or just a Y, that is more than enough for me. Okay, great. So let's start. So first of all, let's find out what IELTS means. IELTS is short for International English Language Testing System. So for those who are not familiar with the test, this is what actually the word IELTS means. Okay, now there are different types of IELTS exam actually. The most famous ones or the most common ones are the academic module. And this one is perfect if you are willing to travel to study. Okay, whether for a bachelor degree or maybe postgraduate degree, okay, or maybe a company asks for it. If you're going to work for a company that asks for such exams, maybe abroad, We have also another famous type, which is the general training, and this one is probably used, mostly used for immigration purposes. So if you are leaving your country and immigrating to another country, let's say Canada or something, so this type of exam would be the best for you, which is called the general training module. There are other types of IELTS that are not very common, and we will not focus on them today. We will basically focus more on the academic and the general training because those are the most popular ones, okay? But if you have any questions about other formats, feel free to ask after our session, okay? So let's take a look at the test format. Now, if you take a look at the test format, you can see here that you have 40 minutes of listening, which will be 30 minutes of listening exam and 10 minutes to transfer your answers, academic reading and academic writing, each of them is 60 minutes. And then we have the speaking, which is from 11 to 14 minutes. Now, for the general training, you can see that it's exactly the same time, but the difference would be in the type of topics that you are going to have. So the academic reading and the academic writing are a bit different than the general training and reading and writing. And we're gonna take a look and see how different they are. Okay, so if we take a look here, as we see, we will start with the listening part. Now, the listening part, as you can see here, that it's, as we said, it's 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, you're going to have a question paper with an answer sheet, and you're going to listen to a conversation, different conversations actually. To be exact, you're going to listen to 4 different conversations. And you're going to have 10 minutes for answer transfer at the end. Now, when it comes to questions, you have 40 questions, and they are different in types. You can have multiple choice questions, map labeling, form completion, sentence completion. For the sections, we have 4 sections. The first one is usually a normal conversation between 2 people, often on the phone. And the second one is 1 person talking in everyday context. The third section would be 2 to 4 people talking together in an academic setting, like maybe about a project or maybe a lecture. And the last section would be a monologue. Only 1 person would be talking, and this person is also talking in an academic context, something like university lecture or something close to that. Now, as we learned, listening and speaking is the same for both types of exams. So for academic and general training, both of them will have the same listening types of topics and questions. Now, this is a sample questions. For example, you can see here, this is a type of table completion. You will have an answered example, so you would know that this is an example and this is how you should answer it. Now, you can see that each space is numbered because you are going to put your answers in the answer sheet according to these numbers. So for example, if you say the population, number 1, let's say it's 50,000. So in your answer sheet, it has to be 50,000 in number 1 box, and so on. Now, how about the answer sheet? Now, this is how the answer sheet looks like. In listening and reading, you are going to use pencils, not pens. Pens are not allowed. So for the first part here, as you can see, you're gonna shade your candidate number because each person or each candidate has a certain number after registration. It is sent to you. And here you are going to shade the date of your exam. And as you can see, it says here listening. So you would know that this is the sheet for the listening, because the reading sheet would be exactly the same one, but instead of listening here, you will see the word reading, and we will see it later on. Now, as you can see that the Answer sheet is divided into 40 boxes, and you have to put the answers for each question according to the question number itself. Otherwise, it's going to be considered a wrong answer. Okay. Now, we are going to use the top 5 tips trick today, and we are going to have top 5 tips for each section. So when it comes to listening section, the top 5 tips for listening section would be, first of all, you need to find anchor words in the question and try to predict synonyms to it. The IELTS exam is very well known for using synonyms. So whenever you have a question in the question paper, it's highly unlikely that you will find the same wording in the answers. So for example, if I say the word candidate in the question paper, then you would be probably looking for something related to candidate in meaning, like a test taker or maybe a student. So you are going to look for a synonym for the word candidate in the listening. Second tip would be identify grammatical rules. Sometimes it helps when you are looking for a certain word to identify, for example, the question says there are, so this means that you are looking for a plural word. Okay, so this can help you while you are answering also your questions. Third thing is practice targeted listening. You will have a lot of unnecessary listening parts that you will not find any answers in them. So try to practice how to target your listening by listening a lot to different conversations, trying to identify the main ideas of each conversation and if there are certain details for each idea. This helps a lot because you are going to find a lot of unnecessary information. Now, let's say you skipped a question. If you skipped a question, please don't stay trying a long time to find the answer. If you skip the question, then it means spending a lot of or more time on this question, you are going to skip more. So if you feel like you skipped a question's answer, just move on to the next one. And then at the end of the exam, you're going to have 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, you can try and remember or try to question's answer might be. And of course, check for mistakes. Mistakes like subject verb agreement. You have to make sure that when you said, for example, the question says there are, so this means I can say there are chairs, because such mistakes might cost you the whole question. Okay, so this is for the listening part. Now, when it comes to the reading section, before we move on to the reading, do you have any questions? Okay, I have one question from Mr. Kapoor here. He says, for teaching job, what type is used? Now, Mr. Jaipur, I think it's better if you ask the institute, but I think for jobs, it's usually the academic module, but it's better to check with the institute that you're going to work for if the one that they're asking for is academic or general, but it's mostly academic. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. Now, moving on to section. Now, the reading section is 60 minutes and it also has 40 questions. Those questions can be either multiple choice or true, false, not given. It can be identifying views. It can be matching headings. Those are the most common types of questions that you will find in reading. Now, the reading is formed of 3 sections. In the past, they were ordered like from the easiest to the hardest, but right now it's not ordered like that anymore. You will find them in a random order, okay? And like, let's say the word count can reach up to 2,750 words a total for the three passages. They are long. Okay. Now, when it comes to a reading sample question, now in a reading, you will usually find the article divided into segments or paragraphs, and each paragraph will be numbered either by numbers or letters. The most common type of questions in the reading section is matching headings, and this one is the one that I'm showing. Like a list of 10 headings, headings, and you are 6 or 7 paragraphs, and you are going to match the heading that is suitable for each paragraph. Now, is to identify the main idea for paragraph. Once you do that, it's going to be really easy for you to find the best thing for each. Okay. Now, when it comes to the reading answer sheet, as you can see, it's exactly the same. The only difference would be the word, okay? And what's the listening exam? Okay.
We have pencils.
Is everything clear now so far? Okay. Now, if you could kindly mute your mics, please, because I can still hear someone talking, but most of the mics here are muted. Okay. Now, Dr. Noor and Dr. Omar, you have a raised hand. Do you have any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, good. Okay. So getting back to our presentation. So is the presentation clear to you? Let me check here. Is it clear now? Can you see? Okay, good. So this is the reading answer sheet, as we said, and it's almost identical as the listening one. Okay, now it's time for the top 5 tips for the reading section. Now, first thing you should do is read the questions first. Now, for each reading section, you're going to have about, let's say, maybe 10, 12 questions. And you have to go through each question carefully. Try to identify any keywords that can help you in focusing or finding the answer in the reading itself, okay? And it's very, very important, as we said, to know your synonyms, because most of the questions will have synonyms for words that are mentioned in the reading section or the reading article itself. Now, it's good to read the first 2 or 3 sentences in each part, in the introduction, in the body, and then the conclusion, because this helps you to identify the main idea for each paragraph. You don't have to read them all. You don't have to do that unless you are asked for a certain specific information. And in this case, you have to dig deep for this information specifically, okay? IELTS reading, as we said, it's not made for reading. You are not required, or you're not you need to find this is your target, this is your goal. Find your answer as fast as possible, not to read the full parts or the full articles. Okay? Find information. So find, let's say, a number, such information when you find in the article, they are very important to highlight because you are highly likely to be asked about them in your question. As we said, you have to be very, you have to, as you love, believe me, it's never, you always need more time. So very important to do this very fast. Comes with the practice for time. When you practice reading or answering you have to make sure that you have your time managed properly. 60 minutes. Now, 40 minutes in which you need to read and write your answer in the answer sheet, because you will not have an extra time to copy your answers to the answer sheet like the listening. And at the same time, you need to give yourself at least 7 to 9 minutes to review, to revise the 40 questions and to make sure that you've answered them correctly. And again, do not spend too much time on a certain question. If you have spent more than a minute on a certain question, leave it and move on to the next one. Because every extra second you spend on that question is a waste of seconds that you should spend on another question that you might find its answer faster. Okay, so time management is the key here. You have to be careful with your time and manage it properly. Okay. Okay, now we have a question from Rebecca. Rebecca here is asking, in reading, do we need to write full answers or it has all multiple answers? Now, Rebecca, in the reading part or even the listening section, the maximum number of words that you will be asked to write will be 3 words only. This would be the longest answer you will be asked to write. Your answers would vary from 1 word to 3 words in the completion part. And in other parts, it's either you write yes, true, not given, or you write the letter of the choice in the multiple choice questions. So is this part clear to you, Rebecca?
Yes, it is clear right now. I can understand now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So if you could kindly mute your mic and use Prod to answer my questions, okay? So we can have a clear voice for everyone. Thank you. Okay. Now, Mr. Abbas has a question. He says, in reading, do we skim or scan text? Actually, you're going to use both. You're going to use both skills in reading, and you have to practice using them as fast as possible, Mr. Abbas. Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. Now, moving on to the next section, which is writing. Now, the writing section, as we said at the beginning, that the topics of reading and writing would be a bit different in the academic module than the general training. Now, in the reading part, you will find that from the name academic module, you will find that the topics are more academic in the reading articles than the general training one. Also in the writing part, you're going to have 2 tasks in the writing in both types of questions. And the total for both of them, to write both of them, is 60 minutes. Now, what would be the word count. Also, the word count is the same for both type of questions and both type of exams. For both type of exams, as task 1 is 150 words and task 2 is 250 words. Now, the difference would be actually in the task number 1, the first one. Okay, now the first section is usually a letter in the general training part, but in the academic part, it's usually analyzing a graph or analyzing data in general. Okay, so what are the writing skills that are assessed in the IELTS writing? First of all, content. You have to make sure that you are writing about the same topic that you are asked to write about. Second of all, organization of ideas. Your ideas need to be clearly organized, and there's quite a form of like a flow between ideas. Grammar and accuracy, and range of vocabulary. Those are the main parts or the main skills that are assessed in writing. Now, if we go through them one more time, you can see that the time is 60 minutes. You have 2 tasks, task 150, task 2, 250. You have 2 sections, and those are the skills assessed. And these key facts are the same for both academic and general training. Okay, now let's take a look at a writing sample academic module for task 1. How a question would look like for academic module. In task 1, as we said, it's going to be more about analyzing. So you are going to have either a bar chart, a line graph, or maybe a mix of both, a combination of both, a pie chart. And in those parts, you are going to analyze the numbers and the data given into and translate them into words. Okay, you can also have tables. You can have a process. You can also have a map for a certain place, for example, and you compare between the 2 places and what changes have happened throughout the years in the same place. Now, if we take a look at the general training module for task 1, it's always a letter, and this letter you write it for different purposes. It's 1 letter that you need to write, and it's going to be either for, let's say, asking for help or a recommendation, or describing a certain problem or writing a complaint. Okay, and as you can see in both types, you will have points or ideas already written for you, and those ideas must be included in your writing. You cannot skip any of them. If any of them, you lose points or marks. Okay, and it shows you here as well that you need to write 150 words. You don't need to write any addresses, and it helps you by saying how to begin your letter by saying dear, and then you write the name of the person. Okay, so as you can see, those are the most common types of task 1 in the general training part. Okay, now when it comes to task 2, there are 3 types of essays that you can be asked for any one of them, but it's going to be only one of them because we said you have 1 topic for task 1 and 1 topic for task 2. Now, you are either going to be asked to write an argumentative essay by whether stating your opinion, or do you agree or disagree, to what extent do you agree or disagree, to what extent do you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So this is 1 type. The other type would be discussion essay, by discussing the advantages and disadvantages and giving your opinion at the end. Discuss both sides of this argument and give your own opinion. Or the third type, that would be a multiple question essay. What are the causes of this problem and what are some potential solutions? or what problems does this phenomenon cause, and how do we avoid them? Or do you agree or disagree with the problem, and how do we resolve it? So you can see that in each one of them, it's two parts. And it's very, very important that you answer for both parts. Okay, so so task 2 here, this is a sample that you can find in one of the exams. Here you have, for example, giving reasons for your answer, include any relevant examples from your knowledge or experience, and write at least 250 words. As you can see here, it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Another type can be advantages and disadvantages. This is also a sample, okay? And you can see here, do the advantages of this development outweigh the disadvantages, okay? If you could kindly mute your mics, please. Thank you very much. Okay, now, when it comes to time management, also time management is crucial here because you are looking to, you're looking at writing a 400 words, total topics, both topics in 1 hour. So it says here that it's better, or it's preferable that you spend 40 minutes on task 2 and you spend 20 minutes on task 1. And I would agree with that because task 2 has higher marks. It has almost 65% of the marks over the over task 1. Okay. Now, if someone is having their mics on, please mute your mics. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, going back to the tips for writing section. Now, it's very important that you write a detailed thesis statement. You have to mention in your introduction a thesis statement that is very close, or let's say relates to the main idea that the question asks you to discuss. And it's important that you paraphrase the question topic in every paragraph. So if you have certain ideas that you are going to discuss in every paragraph, you need to paraphrase it, okay? And you need to start with it and end your paragraph with it as well. Try to use transition sentences. If you remember at the beginning, I told you that the flow of ideas is important, and such flow will come when you use transition sentences. Okay, summarize your main points at the end of your passage. It's very important that you summarize your main points, except for task 1 in the academic module. You're not requested, or you're not required to do that, because you are simply analyzing data from a graph or a table given to you. And at the end, you have to give yourself at least 10 minutes to revise, or let's say 8 minutes total for both task 1 and task 2 to go through them and revise them properly. Okay? Okay, so now we're done with the writing section. So if you have any questions, please write them down in your chat pod. Please keep your mics muted and write your answers, write your questions, sorry, in the chat pod. Okay, so Ms. Shahira has a question here. She says, for the academic writing task 1, does the student need to use academic language and vocab? Yes, Ms. Shahira, definitely. It has to be in an academic context. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, now moving on to the speaking section. Now, the speaking section is a total of 11 to 14 minutes, and it's basically 3 parts. And you can either have it before your written exam or after your written exam. It depends on the venue that you're going to have your exam at. They would schedule your speaking exam, and they would send you an email prior, so you would know when it will be exactly. Okay, it's going to be a face-to-face interview. So during the COVID-19 problems that we're having right now in the pandemic and everything, so you have to check the IELTS.org website to make sure if you have any IELTS exams running right now. But for Saudi Arabia, I'm sure that it's all suspended. All IELTS exams are suspended till the end of April, I guess, and it might be extended to further notice. Okay. The speaking exam is recorded. Why? Why is it recorded? Because the examiner gives you a mark during your exam. And let's say that there is a certain point, let's say that they need to check one more time, they can get back to the recording. And let's say you file a complaint that you are unsatisfied with your speaking score, and you need to have you need it to be remarked. So in this case, another examiner listens to your recording and gives you another score. Okay. After that, you can see that there are 3 sections, and those 3 sections, the first one is a short basic conversation, and this one would be about family, about work, about hobbies. Of course, you introduce yourself first, and the examiner will introduce himself or herself first. You will show him or her your ID, and then the questions start. And this would take about 4 to 5 minutes. The second section would be a cue card, and the cue card will have a certain topic that you need to talk about. This part would be like in a form of a presentation form, like the examiner will not ask you about it while you are speaking. After you finish speaking, you might have one or two follow-up questions. Okay, but you are going to be speaking non-stop for about 1 to 2 minutes. So the total of this section would be 3 to 4 minutes max. Then section 3, that is going to be more of the interview format, where the examiner is going to ask you a certain question. You're going to answer it, maybe have a small discussion about it. Why do you think that? Why you don't think that? And so on. So more details would be required in this part. That's why it might take a little bit longer than section 2, reaching up to 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now the test criteria, like how or what are the skills assessed in speaking part? Fluency. It's very important that you should be speaking at a natural rate. You don't have to show that you are exerting a lot of effort while you are expressing yourself in English. Second thing would be vocab range. Of course, the more complex the vocab you use, the higher the score you get. Accuracy and grammatical range. Of course, using complex sentences would be of higher score than simple ones. Pronunciation, that you are pronouncing the words correctly. Okay, because some people misunderstand the pronunciation here by accent. No, you are not being assessed for your accent. If you have a British one, American one, Australian one, it doesn't matter. Okay, the most important thing that you are speaking clearly and fluently. Okay. Okay, now when it comes to sample questions, now the sample questions for part 1, as we said, it's going to be something more of getting to know each other part. So for example, let's talk about your home, let's talk about your village, let's talk about accommodation. So as you can see, it's like get to know you type of questions. And you're not going to be asked to answer, like give long answers for this part. But for the second part, this is the part that you're going to speak for the longest time. As you can see, this is a sample of a cue card. And you will have certain points mentioned to you here, and you have to discuss them all in your presentation or in your speech. You will have 1 minute to prepare, by the way. You will have 1 minute to prepare for this one. You will be given even a piece of paper and a pencil if you want to write down certain key points or ideas really, really fast that can help you while you are speaking. So you don't forget any of the points that you want to speak about. Then you're going to have the third part. Now, the third part, as you can see, would be more of detailed questions or questions that needs details to be answered. Like what kind of things that give status to people in your country? Have things changed since your parents' time? It could be about advertising. It could be about sales. It could be about any general topic. Let me tell you this. It's not going to be something that you need to study for, like something related to zoology or something related to medicine. No, it's going to be topics that are basically everyday topics, like general life topics, nothing specific or nothing too scientific for you to answer. Okay, now there are loads of websites out there that gives you samples of questions for each part and even samples for answers on how to answer each question properly. Okay, when it comes to the tips for the speaking section, it's very important that you keep talking. Try to minimize the pauses, try to minimize the all these things actually lowers your score. Another thing is try to use an idiom or two, but not too much. Okay, use linking words as much as possible. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, believe me, because one of the let's say a score 7 or even a score 8 means that you are fluent in the language with few errors. So errors are allowed up to score 8. No problem with that, but try to minimize them as much as possible. Okay, and of course, in order to minimize such mistakes, you need to practice. And the best way to practice speaking is through recording. Record yourself, record your speech, listen to it again, and record yourself. Try to find your weakest points and work on them. You have too many pauses, you are using a simple vocabulary, for example, you have lots of grammatical mistakes. Believe me, you can spot them once you listen to them again. So recording is the best way to practice for speaking exam. Of course, if you have someone else who has a good level of English or a good command of English, you can give your recording to them and they can also help you in deciding what are your points of weaknesses that you can or you need to work on. Okay, so now we're done with the 4 skills that are assessed in the IELTS exam. Now the time comes for the scoring. How is the exam scored? Now the exam is scored, okay, from 1 to 9. You can have a band 1 up to band 9 in each skill. And at the end, you're going to have an average or an overall score of the 4 skills. Okay, so let's try and go through them, okay, quickly. Now, a band 0 means that you did not attempt the test. It means like you're not there. Band 1 is a non-user, which means like you have written your name and nothing else, or maybe one sentence and then nothing else in the paper. Band 2 intermittent, 3 extremely limited, 4 limited, modest, competent, and then we move on until 7 or 8 and 9. Of course, band 9 is an expert user, which is according to the CEFR, it means that you are a C2 level, like a native like speaker. Okay, this is band 9. Okay. Okay, so do you have any questions so far regarding speaking, regarding scoring? Well, I have a question. I'm not sure from who. It says here, Galaxy A8. Are we going to take this material, the file of the lecture, so we can preview and discuss later? Well, this session actually is recorded, and we are now live on YouTube. So I'm gonna send you the link for the recording and for our YouTube live session, and you can get back to it as many times as you want. Okay? Any other questions? Great. Okay, what do we expect on test day? Now, in order to get an IELTS exam, you need first to go to IELTS.org. This is the website where you register for your IELTS exam, and you click on book a test. Once you click on book a test, you are going to be asked to fill out certain information, like for example, where are you going to take the test, which country, which city, male or female, let's say if it's in Saudi Arabia, and when are you going to take it, what type of exam is it going to be, okay? And according to that, they are going to give you a schedule of all the exams for this month, okay? As we said, according or because of the COVID pandemic going on right now, it's different from one country to another. So you have to check on the website if the IELTS is available in your country or not. Okay. Now, once you book the test, you are going to be asked to pay for the fee of the exam, which I think also it's a bit different from one country to the other. In Saudi Arabia, I guess it's like 1,100 riyals, which is almost like, let's say $250, something like that, but it's different from one country to another. It's very, very important to make sure that the ID that you book with is the ID that you take with you to the exam. Otherwise, you will not be admitted to the exam. So if you, let's say, registered with your passport number, then your passport is the ID required or has to be with you on exam day. If it's your national ID, then you take your national ID and so on. And please make sure that you write your name exactly the same way that it's written in your ID, whether it's a passport or a national ID. Okay. Now, we have registered. Once you have registered, you are going to receive an email from IELTS giving you the exam date, and it will also give you an access to some practice materials that you can use online. Okay. Once you're done with that, and now it's your test day. So how the journey will be like. Now, the first thing, you need to be there like an hour or an hour and a half before your exam. Usually the exams start at 9 a.m. So it means you need to be there around 7:30 or 8. You leave all of your personal belongings at the gate. You don't take anything with you inside, no phones, no smartphones, no electronics whatsoever. You are only going to be asked to get in with your ID, and that's it. Even pens and pencils, most venues now provide you with them. So you won't be needing to take them with you. Now, the third step, okay, they are going to check your ID and make sure that it's yours. They will take your photo, they will take your fingerprint, okay, and then you are admitted to your exam room. Once you are in, it's almost impossible to get out from the room until the exam is finished. So in this case, let's say you want to go to the bathroom or want to grab a bite or something before the exam, you do that before you get into the exam room. Now, once you're in, the written exam will start at 9 o'clock sharp, which means a few minutes before 9, they will start distributing the papers. You will have your exam paper and you'll have your answer sheet. You're not allowed to write in any of them until they give you the start mark, okay? You are going to have around 2 hours and 45 minutes, a total exam, because this would be 60 minutes for reading, 60 minutes for writing, 40 minutes for listening. And of course, you have a few minutes in between for collecting and distributing exam and answer sheets. So you finish around 12 o'clock. Okay, so let's say it's almost 3 hours. After that, Of course, it's very, very important to attempt all the components of the test. You must write your answers for all of the 3 sections. Then you have to check your time for the speaking test, which will be actually written for you on your desk, along with your candidate number and your name. So the desk that you're going to be seated at will have a paper. This paper has all the information that you need: your name, your candidate number, and your speaking exam date and time. Then you check that time, and you have to be there also at least 30 minutes before this time. In the speaking venue, you have also to check if your speaking venue will be the same as the writing or the written exam venue, or it's going to be a different one. So please make sure that you know the venue for your speaking exam. You have to be there 30 minutes before, because you are going to be checked one more time, your ID, your fingerprint, and you're going to give all of your belongings also before you enter the exam, and then you will be admitted for your speaking exam. And then you're done with your test. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, when it comes to using pen or pencil, as we said at the beginning, for reading and listening, you are going to use pencils, and for writing, you are going to use pens. Okay. Now I have a question from Ms. Saidat. Says here, how we can get a certificate for teaching IELTS. So it means you want to be an IELTS trainer. Is that what you mean? Because being teaching IELTS is different from being an IELTS examiner. You have to know the difference, that those are 2 different certifications. Being an IELTS examiner is different from being an IELTS trainer. Now, being an IELTS trainer, it's usually given, the workshops and the trainings are usually given by the British Council. So you need to go and check with your local British Council Center and check if they have any trainings or workshops going on. For me, for example, I have attended the workshops through my work, actually, through the university. They have they've had an agreement with the British Council, and they gave us the workshops and the trainings at the university. So we didn't have to go to the British Council. So it's different. It depends on the institute you work for, and it depends on your local center. So you have to go and check. Okay. For being an IELTS examiner, yes, you have to have a score of 9 in order to be qualified to be an IELTS examiner. Yes, that's true. Yeah. So I hope that I have answered your question. Now, Shahir has a question about a high intermediate student. How long does it take for a high intermediate student to practice independently before the exam? Well, this actually depends also on different things. First of all, this student or this candidate has to find out his or her points of strength and points of weaknesses from the skills point of view, like reading, listening, writing, speaking, because each section has certain strategies that they need to practice for. So it's not only about their command of the English language. As I said, there are other factors that they need to practice for, like time management, like spotting the answers, like knowing synonyms. Okay, all of these are other. Excuse me, could you please mute your mic? Thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, like for me, whenever I give a course to any IELTS candidate, my advice would be give them like a mock exam, a mock IELTS exam, and let them answer it in an exam environment. Okay, and according to the score that they're going to get, then we can find out the points of strength and weaknesses that this candidate need to focus on. Okay, so as we said, it's not only about their English level, it depends also on other factors. Okay, so any other questions? I hope this was clear, Mishahira. Okay, now let's take a look at an IELTS report. Okay, now the IELTS report is actually something like that. This is one of my IELTS reports. I've taken this exam many times since I'm a non-native myself. So I've been asked many times to take the IELTS exam. So this is how it looks like. You can see that you are going to have the type of exam. Let's say this one was for general training. You're going to have the venue, you're going to have the date, you're going to have the candidate number, of course, first, last name, and the ID that I used, and the date of birth, every single information. That's why I'm telling you, it's very, very important to have the same information as the ones that you are going to use, or you're going to have in the ID that you are going to use for the IELTS. Okay, you can see here that each skill has its own band, and then at the end, you're going to have the overall band score, and then at the end, you're going to have the CEFR level. Okay, so this is how IELTS report looks like. Okay, okay. Now, yes, Dr. Omar is asking a question. The suitable module for English teaching job required by colleges, schools, it should be the academic one, Dr. Omar. The academic module is the one required for such positions. Okay? Okay, now, most of us are really busy, and most of the IELTS candidates actually are really busy because most of them, they are either busy working, having their own jobs, or studying maybe for a certain degree. So one of the things that I really prefer is having some apps on the go that you can have on your phone. Let's say you are in your car, you are in a traffic jam, you can use this time to practice. Okay, try to use as much time as possible in practicing. IELTS is all about practice. The more you practice, the more you get used to the IELTS test format, and it's going to be easier for you to answer. Okay, so what are the apps that are best for IELTS? Those are the ones that I actually recommend. You have IELTS Word Power. IELTS Word Power is, from its name, it's mostly about vocab. So it's increasing your vocab level. 1001 ways and IELTS Prep, both are for the skills. You can see that you're going to have samples of questions for each skill, and you can actually test your level in each one of them. And I think that they are also categorized according to levels, like in levels. So once you've finished a certain level, you can move the one that is higher, and so on. Another one is Quizlet. Quizlet is a great app that you can use to create flashcards. If you are someone who likes to maybe work with flashcards, and this is a great strategy for learning synonyms, you can use Quizlet for it. You have also the British Council Grammar app. And if you want to have stronger grammar, you can use this app as well. Okay. Now, as we said, those are like, this is like IELTS in a nutshell. Like there are still lots of information. If you are actually a candidate or you are training candidates, it could take us a series of sessions in order to actually have a good grip on the IELTS exam. So I hope this helped you and you have learned something new about the IELTS today, or maybe I've changed your mind about how the IELTS is like. Now, if you have any other questions, now is the time. Okay. Uh, well, Ms. Farida, this is another thing that I want to discuss with you. If you would like to have further sessions, I'd be happy to do that for you. I'm going to send you actually a quick survey after this session. And I would love to hear your opinion about it. If you can fill out the survey, it would give me a clear view of what you've learned today, what you want to learn, more about in the future, and this can actually help me in planning for the next session. Okay. Any other questions? Share the links. Definitely, Miss Rebecca. I'm gonna share the links for the apps. I'm gonna share the links for our sessions recording today. And I'm gonna give you a few extra bonus links for your commitment and for your attendance today for some websites that can actually help you in preparing for IELTS. Okay. Again, you can still find me whether through email. This is my work email. You can use this one, or you can use the one that I've sent my invitation to you through. You can also scan the QR code to connect with me through LinkedIn. So with your phones, you can simply scan this QR code now, and it would take you straight to my LinkedIn profile. Just click on connect, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you. Okay. Yes, Miss Sarah, it says you say you have a question? Yes, go ahead. What's your question? Okay, so Sarah, until you write your question, I have a question from Miss Alia. Miss Alia says here, how can I get a score 9 if my last score is 6.5? Now, Miss Alia, as I said, you have to find out why did you get a 6.5? You have to analyze your score. Is it because of listening? Is it because of speaking? Is it because of writing? You have to check where is your point of weakness. And once you find it, you need to work hard on it so you can get or get your best score in this skill. So it needs practice, but first of all, you need to have some sort of analysis or reflection to make sure that you are on the right track. Before planning, you need to find out where you are so you can plan for your next step. Okay. Now, another question. Ms. Sarah is asking, cursive writing may impact our grades? No, if it's clear, Ms. Sarah, then no problem. It wouldn't affect your grade, no. Dr. Noor is asking, is it possible to have reading sessions in particular in the future? Sure, why not? We can actually, you can write that in your recommendations in the survey that I'm going to send you soon. And you can write that you need like reading sessions in order to work on your reading skills. And I'm sure we're going to find time for that. No problem. Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? I hope that I've answered all your questions clearly. And if you think of any other questions anytime, don't hesitate to contact me, whether through LinkedIn, through email, no problem, anytime. And I'll do my best to answer your questions as soon as possible. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day. and hope to see you soon. Bye.